Pokemon Mania was only getting bigger. Red and Blue version were released on Game Boy the year prior. The TCG couldn't keep up with demand, and the animated series had kids glued to their televisions on Saturday morning. Fans of the series couldn't wait for more. Everyone was wondering, when are the next games coming? Game Freak, the developer of Pokemon, needed something to give the fans while they developed the sequel games.
Look who's back. And this time, the two of you are partners in the latest installment of the Pokemon saga. It's Pokemon Yellow, the special Pikachu edition for Game Boy Color, where it's you and Pikachu catching as many as you can together. Look for the Pokemon Yellow Bundle Pack. It includes a limited edition Pokemon Game Boy and Yellow Game Pack.
Welcome folks, I'm Livid. Today I'll be talking about Pokemon Yellow version, Special Pikachu Edition. I have a longer video talking about Red and Blue, which covers much more of the gameplay. This video will focus more on the differences from Red and Blue than a ground-up explanation of the first games. But before we get started, if you like this video and want to see more like it, please like, comment, and subscribe. I've been doing Pokemon lately, but I love video games in general, so you'll see a little bit of everything eventually. To watch me play these games live and make videos about them, check me out on Twitch. I also have a new Patreon. This will help me make more content in the future. I love doing teasers and talking about what I'm doing behind the scenes to give you guys something extra. Alright, let's get started. To be honest, I don't have a ton of memories playing Yellow from back in this era, but I did play it. I do remember the day it came out. My mom drove us to the mall to get it on release day. You know how some malls had or still have Macy's and JCPenney's connected to them? I remember we had parked outside the Macy's side of the mall because I was trying to use the light from the big Macy's sign to read the text on the box and manual. It was later at night when my mom had gotten off work and we were sitting in the parking lot and I wanted to read all that. Pokemon Yellow version would be the second upper version of the series. The first one was Pokemon Blue in Japan. Uppers are the third game in an original duo of games that usually adds some sort of new story content, different roster of Pokemon exclusives, and some gimmicks. Upper versions would become part of the series process for years to come. So what was thrown in Pokemon Yellow version? There were new Pokemon and trainer sprites that looked fantastic from the predecessors, new gift Pokemon, a surfing minigame, even some overworld touch-ups on the art, and much more that I'll mention later. But the biggest changes need some context. Back in 1999, Pokemania was in full force. There was a ridiculous amount of marketing items related to the Pokemon brand, but none bigger than what I like to call the trifecta. The games, the anime series, and the cards. Each one continually fueled the other, and mixing them could be very lucrative. The anime series featured Ash Ketchum as the main character of the show with his trusty sidekick Pikachu. Although the main characters of the games is not Ash Ketchum, Yellow version sought to capitalize off the anime series' success by modeling the game to reference the anime show. It would do this by giving the main character Pikachu as a starter and adding things like Team Rocket. Pokemon Yellow version would cause decades-long confusion amongst fans about what the game's main character's name was. Like in Gold and Silver when you face Red and not Ash, although his team may look very much like Ash's team from the show. Pikachu wasn't just your starter, it was the star of the game. It was very much intended for you to play with the Pikachu. It was the first Pokemon that would follow you around in the overworld, like Pikachu did in the show. You could interact with it to check its mood, as there was a new friendship mechanic. It could not be released, and you couldn't evolve it into a Raichu, just like the series. Getting Pikachu as a starter wasn't all that bad either as far as typings go. Electric moves are great throughout the game. And this is a self-inflicted change, but in Yellow version, the wild Pikachus are removed from Viridian Forest because it would be kind of awkward to encounter your starter in the wild like that. But because of that, access to electric type moves early in game was even less frequent than in Red and Blue if you aren't going to use your starter Pikachu. Its moveset would also be drastically changed from Red and Blue to give you a little more help along the way. For example, it gets to learn Thunderbolt at level 26, which is an outrageously good move throughout the game. You will start to notice Pikachu falling off late game though, as its lack of evolution will be outpaced by fully evolved Pokemon later. Although you lose the power of choice in regards to starters, you can get all three original starters of Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander as gift Pokemon throughout the game. This is to reflect how Ash did the same thing in the show. Other than Team Rocket showing up here and there, Pokemon Yellow plays virtually identical to Red and Blue. You'll encounter all the same gym leaders, Elite Four members, and even have access to all the same legendary Pokemon. Team Rocket's Jessie and James make an appearance multiple times in these games. They interrupt you just like they would in the anime. Their teams aren't that bad either, to be honest. Meowth, Coughing, and Ekans aren't pushovers and can sometimes land some nasty hits on you when you least expect it. It's nice that they're there, their designs look pretty cool, their Pokemon are pretty good, but they're really just thrown in as extra battles anywhere Team Rocket already was in the games. Their leader, Giovanni, also has some Pokemon adjusted to match what he has in the show. I had briefly mentioned how there was a surfing game, but unfortunately, the requirements to even play were a little ridiculous. You needed to have Pokemon Stadium, get to round 2 of the Prime Cup Master Division, enter the tournament, and select Pikachu in your party from Yellow version. For every fight, you must use Pikachu. After beating the round 2 Prime Cup, you will finally be given access to teach your Pikachu Surf. But that's easier said than done, because Pikachu is pretty much useless in those fights, so you're constantly fighting an uphill battle. I never ended up getting to play the surfing game as a kid. The best part is, I had all that equipment. I could have done it, but I wouldn't have known all those steps. I could see myself putting Pikachu in the game maybe, but not using it for every battle in the Master Division. Why would I? But the 3DS came to save the day. Pokemon Yellow would eventually be released on the 3DS. In the 3DS version, the surfing game was just automatically made available, which was amazing. And you know what? I'm glad I never did it back in the day. Don't get me wrong, the game's kind of fun, but you play it once and you go, oh neat, and you move on. It's not something that becomes a game within a game like Gwent is in The Witcher 3. But what is forever lost is the overworld sprite of surfing. Since even in the 3DS, you still can't get a surfing Pikachu in your party, you can never have a literal surfing Pikachu while you surf in the game. Yep, they did a whole different animation for a surfing Pikachu on the overworld. Now that feels like it would have been worth it. Yellow still had Pokemon that were not obtainable in the game. They took away Meowth, Coughing, and Ekans, which seems strange, but I guess they didn't want you having similar Pokemon to Team Rocket. Also, there's of course Raichu, which makes sense because you only get one obtainable Pikachu and you can't evolve it. Because remember, the Pikachus in Viridian Forest apparently went extinct. I do think some cool changes were added to this game, but it's never sat right with me how many Pokemon are still not available in the upper version of a game. I feel like if they're asking you to pay full price for a game that was essentially recycled from a game that came out the year prior, you should have been given nearly all the obtainable Pokemon. Maybe not all, so you still felt like you needed to trade with friends, but come on, no Electabuzz or Magmar? That's not fair. A few interesting changes I found while researching are pretty cool and again reference the show. I never knew these as a kid. On Route 6, a junior trainer male and female are changed to reference Joe and Giselle from the show. On Route 9, a junior trainer is replaced with a youngster to better reflect AJ and his Sandshrew from the show. Pidgey and Pidgeotto were also added to Viridian Forest because they're seen there in the anime. Yellow has been somewhat remade in the form of Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu, and Eevee, but I honestly can't tell you much about those games because I haven't played them myself. I'm generally not into the Go series, and I've heard there are a lot more hand-holding mechanics. That could be untrue, that's just what I've heard, let me know if I'm wrong. Alright, so what do I think of Pokemon Yellow? I personally prefer Red and Blue, and the main reason is choice. I want to be able to choose my starter and build my team out from there. Not being able to select between 3 starters is always going to make me feel like I'm being guided in a way I don't want to be. In Yellow version, you're given a Pikachu and it's heavily implied you should use it. You don't have to, but if you don't want to use it, why don't you just play Red and Blue? And then if you change your mind in Red and Blue, you can easily just catch one in the forest early on. Now, if this is the only game you had back then, I totally understand that. The game is definitely fine and serviceable. Later on, you get access to the original starting Pokemon as gift Pokemon, and again, you don't have to use them either, but the game is already so focused on the anime, it feels like you should be using them. I mean, their typings, stats, moves, and designs are fantastic. Who wouldn't use them? But then that's 4 spots on your team already decided for you if you go down that route. That doesn't leave much room for customization. Nothing in the game is punishing you for not using them though. And it's nice that they give you the option to recreate Ash's team from the show if you want to go down that route too. And that's where I'm at with Yellow version. Sometimes I just want to walk down memory lane for the days when I watch the show. I use all the gift Pokemon and I try to have the team just like Ash's was, and it's a fun experience. I think this game was and is for people who casually watch the show or have seen Pokemon from a distance and want a more streamlined experience. I had a friend play Yellow as his first ever Pokemon game in 2023. I gave him options on what games he could play, gave him the pros and cons. I even suggested playing Fire Red or Leaf Green. But he said he specifically wanted to play Yellow. When I asked him why, he said, I feel like I missed out on it during that era, and Pikachu reminds me of that craze. I just want to have that experience. He ended up loving the game, even today. So it does have a place. It may not be for everybody. I've gone back and played it here and there when I get into the mood, and I genuinely have fun. I'm glad it exists, but usually I like to have more options to start my games. Well, folks, that's Pokemon Yellow version. Those were my thoughts. Let me know what you think of Pokemon Yellow. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, and sub. It really does help me. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.